with what the Warriors did. I think it's expected that if Durant goes down, the other guys are going to carry the mantle. But if you're the Rockets and you're getting huge performances out of a guy like PJ Tucker, and yet Chris Paul and James Harden and Clint Capella, the guys can't get it done, to me, that spells that this just is a recipe that's never going to work, because the West is going to get better. There are teams like we're going to talk about with the Blazers and the Nuggets and others that are coming. You know, the Lakers aren't going to stay down forever. Point is, the Rockets had their chance. Couldn't get it done, Justin. So yeah, I'm 100% more disappointed that the Rockets couldn't take advantage of a situation.
I'm so happy you said that, because I might have had to just walk off the podcast if you said the other way with the Warriors. That was the craziest thing. It was like all of a sudden the Warriors, oh, poor Warriors, they don't have anybody left. You're talking about Klay this offseason being a max guy. You're talking about Draymond in a year potentially being a max guy. And you have Steph. You still have three very good players. These were the core, along with Iguodala, that won 73 games before Kevin Durant got there. This is a very, very good basketball team now. Some of the pieces aren't still there in terms of Harrison Barnes and some of the guys on the bench, but you still have three really, really good players. This was more disappointing because, Eric, no matter who's on the court, even if Durant is out there, you just won games 3 and 4 in Houston. Now you've got game 6. Your entire franchise is basically built itself to beat Golden State. That's been the plan all along. Their GM has come out and talked about the obsession with beating the Warriors. And you're in a basketball game late in the fourth quarter, where it's a one possession, it's a back and forth game, and you can't figure out how to execute to get the job done. I agree with you. With this Houston, the way they're trying to basically manipulate and change the game of basketball, it proves that it works at times, that shooting a lot of threes works because you just outscore other teams. And if you can just hit a decent number, if you can shoot in the mid to high 30s, you're going to be in games. But they don't ever have a plan B. They don't ever have like break glass in case of emergency when all is going wrong. They just don't have that. And it feels like they've got to add at least that element. Like, okay, if what we're doing isn't working, we've got to have the ability to flex on that. We've got to be able to change and morph ourselves in to get a victory. And they just don't do that. It feels like as series go on versus really good competition, they don't make adjustments and teams adjust to them and get more comfortable playing the style that they're going to play. It just isn't working for them. It works up to a certain point, but they can't get over the hump. So it feels like to me, Eric, that's where the Rockets have to figure out. And I don't know how they do that, because Chris Paul signed a mammoth deal for them that they've got on the books now. And I don't know what they do with him. So going forward, they just don't have a lot of flexibility. They're a lot like Oklahoma City. They've kind of got what they've got. Now it's like, okay, what veterans or what can we do in the draft, or where do we go now? What pieces can we sort of trade off and try to upgrade? Because they just don't have a lot of salary cap flexibility left. And Chris Paul just keeps getting older and older.
Yeah, I think they're at a breaking point. I don't have much more to say on it, to be honest with you. I know you've got a couple other good topics here regarding the Warriors and the Rockets, but I'm agreeing with you. I just don't think they have a lot of other places to go. And I'm starting to wonder if James Harden is going to fall into that same category as a Russell Westbrook, where great individual basketball players who might never win a championship.
No, I'm right there with you. As much as I like Harden and the year that he had and what he did for this team to basically drag them out of the basement in the Western Conference and get them into a position to even be here. But again, Eric, it sort of feels like they had a hangover from last year. They pushed all their chips in. Everything was about being the Warriors. Chris Paul gets hurt. Everything fell apart then, and it was like they were just in this funk to start this year. And it got them behind where it feels like maybe they used up Harden too much. Maybe they just rode him too hard early in this year to get them out of that hole. And then they end up being the 4th seed, because it certainly feels like if they were the 2nd or the 3rd seed and they got the Warriors later, maybe Durant's not there for more games than they missed. Maybe he gets injured in one of these other games or something happens in the playoffs and they have the Warriors a little bit later, or that they were able to take off better. It's not like the Warriors ran off from anybody to be the number 1 seed. It really felt like the Rockets needed that. And they just started the season off so badly that they put themselves in this position. They put themselves in this hole. So yeah, the Rockets, a lot like Philly. There's a lot of questions on this team of how did they get over the hump? Are they just going to wait for the Warriors to sort of disassemble? and they think that's the key. But again, their key pieces just keep getting older as well. Chris Paul was not the same guy. He had a good game 6, but through this series, Eric, it felt like he was a lot of times was a liability for them on the offensive side. He really wasn't doing a lot. He's shot the ball horrible from 3 through the playoffs for them in general. See, I hate it for Harden that he's going to get labeled this, but you can't lose that game. Their owner said it right. It's unacceptable to be that kind of team and have those kind of pieces, have a guy who could be the MVP on your team. Steph Curry didn't even make a shot, didn't even have a point in the first half of the game, and you let him get 33 on you in the second half and lose that game at home. That's just unacceptable for the Rockets.
So the big question here for me, Justin, is what do the Warriors do going forward if they don't have Durant? It seems like maybe this injury, they escaped one. It's apparently not his Achilles, which is great. I've always said, whether you're a fan of a team or not, the superstars being on the floor is always better for any league, and it's better for the fans. So I'm glad that Durant does not have an Achilles injury. I'll go on record as saying that. So let's say he is able to come back in a couple of weeks. Do you think they're able to get through this next series without him so that maybe they go to the finals and he's somewhat ready by that point? But even then, the bigger picture is for Durant, how does this play into maybe, and it's probably way too early to talk about this, how does it play into what he's going to do from here on out?
Well, in terms of the series, how that's going to go, I'll pause that one. Wait till we talk Denver Blazers, because I think that's going to be, I think the Blazers are getting overlooked, and I think they're going to give the Warriors all they want, especially while KD is out. But wasn't it crazy that the fan base that was probably as upset as anybody when that period of time happened where it actually seemed like Durant had torn his Achilles was the Knicks fans and the Nets fans? They seemed like they were more upset than Warrior fans. Like, oh my God, he just tore his Achilles. We're not going to get him next year. He's not even going to be around. By the time he's ready, we're going to be far eliminated from the playoffs at that point. So it just felt like the whole balance of the NBA and the power structure and everything that we are thinking is going to happen July 1st when free agency started, it got expedited into this crazy 30-minute period of time where this huge unknown was out there with Durant. And it was like, well, now what's he do? Does he opt back in for a year and just rehab with Golden State? Do they even want him to do that? Is he willing to still sign a deal? I thought there was some crazy things that just happened during that period of time, wondering what in the world is going to happen outside of just this playoffs. There was just so much riding, so much of just the balance of power in this league riding on what was going to happen to KD. And then it turns out it's more of a calf strain, a shorter term injury at that point. But Eric, again, I think it takes back to NBA contracts fully guaranteed. These guys are getting truckloads of money backed up to them, $35, $40 million a year deals. And they keep signing these 1+1 deals. I just think that now you've kind of seen the bad side. We saw it earlier this year with how it affected the locker room of the unknown out there and how that weighs on the team, how it can pull them down, how that stress that's out there every day is there for them. We saw it in Boston even with Kyrie at the end of his deal and just that unknown factor out there. And then KD did it to himself by signing a 1-year deal. And now you're starting to see the bad side, that these guys are not invincible. They can get a injury that could harm them. Kevin Durant was a guy early in his career that dealt with a lot of foot injuries and missed time. And you take a chance now each year you get older and you keep signing these 1+1 deals. What happens when you get an injury that you can't come back from as quick as you think? John Wall is the smartest guy in the league, Eric. He took all the Wizards' money, and who knows if he'll ever play again, but he's got his money, and he tore his Achilles falling down stairs or something at this point. But the man's smart because he got a truckload of money from the Wizards. So I think that's the other side of this, that maybe guys start looking at that different. Like, where else am I going to go and get a deal of 4 years and $180 or $200 million thrown at me, and I'm going to turn it down because I might not be happy here? I'll tell you what will make you a lot happier when you have $150 million more in the bank.
I don't think there's a shadow of a doubt that LeBron James has ruined this league with these 1-on-1s.
Well, at least he signed a 4-year deal this time. He was smart enough to do that.
This time, because he has to. He's coming up to the end of his career. He can't keep doing 1-on-1s. But the precedent that he has set is so dangerous for this league because of some of these reasons. And I think you've articulated it well. I think the NBA, the players union, and the league is going to have to face facts here in the next couple of years when they do the next agreement, and they've got a lot of bargaining to do, because I think the owners and the franchises are seeing the bad side of allowing these players to dictate these one-on-ones and have these player options. And it doesn't allow you as a GM and as a president of basketball operations to really build and control your future as a franchise. And when you're talking about multi-million and billion-dollar businesses, I think it's crazy to think of some of your biggest assets going by the wayside every year or two as you're trying to build a big business for your city. I don't think there's any other business that would run that way or allow it to be run that way. And so I think there's a day of reckoning coming for these players and this league, because this is a mess, and you get into these injury situations and it just becomes even muddier.
And I'll tell you what else. The other thing that really pissed me off when listening to radio after this and listening to these talking heads out there, this whole notion that Durant's injury came because he was playing too many minutes in the playoffs. Oh, boo-hoo at that point, Eric. These guys are so coddled now. The league is so much different than it was even 5 years ago, much less when you think about 10, 15, 20 years ago, when you had guys like Jordan and Kobe that for their playoff careers are averaging over 40 minutes a game. Kevin Durant is on a team that's got two of the best shooters all time, making his life easier. And the Warriors basically didn't play any defense for 82 games. It's not like he was playing taxing minutes at that point. He was averaging about 34 minutes a game through the regular season. And then he gets into the playoffs and he's got to pick up the pace some, and people think that's the reason he got injured. That is the stupidest take out there. These guys are babied and coddled more now than ever in the history of this league. That was just a fluke play. That had nothing to do. And if that did have something to do, that's on Kevin Durant for not having himself in good enough shape to be able to play the rigors of a season. Because a lot of other guys, when the conditioning and the technology and everything that's out there now wasn't around, you didn't see guys doing that back then. So I don't want to hear that argument at all, that it is some kind of a minutes restriction. Kevin Durant is in the best situation of any player in this league. And yeah, he might be playing 40 minutes a night, but he's got a lot of help around him that guys, frankly, like a Kawhi Leonard right now don't have. And you don't hear him belly aching about minutes, at least in the playoffs. I mean, at least he was man enough to basically say, hey, I'm a free agent. I'm not going to go kill myself for Toronto. But in the playoffs, you're not hearing him griping about having to play 40 plus minutes. So I thought that was the stupidest take ever. Am I wrong on that?
No, you're not wrong at all. I mean, evidence is with guys like LeBron James. Nobody has played more minutes in the last 15 years than LeBron James. And the only significant injury he's really had outside of the back issues and spasms he had a few years ago is this groin injury that he had this year. But I'm right there with you. These players probably, for the most part, are the most well-conditioned machines in the world, other than probably soccer players, right? So EPL soccer players, football players, basketball players, they are elite athletes in terms of cardio, in terms of stretching, flexibility, and musculature. There is still going to be freak accidents and freak injuries. So I'm not going to sit here and blame Durant's minutes or anything like that on whether or not he had a calf strain, or even if he had popped his Achilles. Are you going to tell Kobe Bryant a few years back when he popped his Achilles that he was out of shape? Well, I certainly wouldn't. Are you going to tell LeBron James that he's not working hard enough on his flexibility and stretching and everything else because he pulls his groin? I'm certainly not. There is a difference between overusing a guy and just having random injuries, because that's sports. That's athletics. Are you going to tell Bo Jackson that he was out of shape when his hip basically fell apart when he was running down the sideline in that game with the Raiders? I don't think so. But these things happen to some of the best athletes in the world. I think it's these guys that want to write stories and make up something and put the blame somewhere, rather than just accepting the fact that in athletics, sometimes you're going to get injured.
Yeah, look, Durant has played, he played a lot of minutes, and he was huge for them on the offensive side. But again, there's been a lot of guys that have come through this league. LeBron has played a ton of minutes through his career. I've never heard anybody say he's getting overused in the playoffs. You want to make that argument in the regular season that he plays too many minutes, I'll bite on that, but not in the playoffs. This is the time where all these guys, this is what every one of these teams are playing for, is to advance in the playoffs. And sometimes you got to play more than others. All right, Eric, I think we need to cool down a little bit. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk Bucks Celtics. We'll also talk Blazer Nuggets. We'll give a quick preview of the upcoming Eastern and Western Conference Finals, and then we're bringing back the lightning round, talk a little PGA golf, little NASCAR, and oh, by the way, there's a Lakers coaching debacle that's out there that we have to tackle as well. We'll have that when we come back.